How could you forget something so basic? Beatrice's sharp tone cut through the gentle hum of the kitchen fan, her words coiling around me like a noose. I froze mid-stir, gripping the wooden spoon as a tightness gripped my chest. The soup simmered on the stove, its aroma filling the air, but all I could taste was the bitterness in her words. My name is Clara Mason, I'm 32, a nurse, and for the past 3 weeks, I've been the caregiver to my recovering mother-in-law. When Beatrice had surgery last month, I moved into her home, juggling hospital shifts with sleepless nights by her side. I wasn't here out of obligation, I wanted to help. I thought it might bridge the years of cold distance between us. But no matter what I did, my efforts seemed invisible, eclipsed by Emily, her perfect daughter. Emily, who breezed in once a week with a dazzling smile, stayed long enough to snap a photo, and left just as quickly. I swallowed hard. The words I wanted to say lodged like thorns in my throat. Beatrice turned back to the table, muttering under her breath. Her disapproval settled over the room like a heavy fog. Emily, of course, was nowhere to be found. She was already late for her weekly appearance, yet Beatrice spoke of her as if she were the one here, ladle in hand, tending to her every need. Careless, the word cut deep, twisting in my stomach. I had sacrificed so much, missed shifts, cancelled plans, even my anniversary dinner with Ben, all to be here, and now I was being criticized for forgetting a pinch of salt in the soup. Meanwhile, Emily could waltz in, take a selfie, and somehow walk away with all the credit. I stared into the pot, my hand trembling as I stirred. Anger simmered within me, bubbling just beneath the surface. It wasn't just Beatrice's words, it was Emily's calculated charm, the way she always framed herself as the devoted daughter, and I was the silent workhorse, too tired to defend myself. The front door creaked open, and Emily's heels clicked against the hardwood floor. She strolled in with a bouquet of flowers in one hand and her phone in the other, radiating effortless charm. "Smells amazing in here," she chirped, her smile lingering on me just a fraction too long before she turned to Beatrice. "How's my favorite patient today?" Beatrice's face lit up as if the sun had just entered the room. Her earlier frustration with me dissolved in an instant. "Emily, sweetheart, you're just in time. I was telling Clara how important it is to pay attention to the little things." Not that she'd understand. I clenched my jaw, my lips pressed into a thin line. Emily placed the flowers on the counter, laughing lightly. "Oh, Mom, I'm sure Clara's doing her best," she said, her voice dripping with syrupy sweetness. Then she turned to me, her smile razor-sharp. "Don't worry, Clara, taking care of Mom isn't easy, I've been learning that myself." The words burned, but Emily was already in motion, pulling out her phone. I knew what was coming next. She posed beside Beatrice, leaning in with a radiant grin as her camera clicked. "Just capturing these precious moments," she said breezily, scrolling through her phone to pick the perfect filter for her devoted daughter act. Beatrice sighed contentedly. "It's so nice having both my girls here," she said, her gaze lingering on Emily, though I'll admit, Emily always knows just how to make me feel special. The weight of those words pressed down on me like a boulder. Both her girls? Special? I thought of the sleepless nights, the endless medications, the careful shifts to ease Beatrice's pain. Meanwhile, Emily's contributions were nothing more than curated snapshots and empty reassurances. The ladle in my hand felt heavier. I could feel the words I had held back for weeks clawing at my throat. Desperate to escape, Emily glanced at me, her phone still in hand, and I wondered if she could see the storm brewing behind my eyes. "Mom," Emily began, her voice as casual and breezy as ever. But this time, I wasn't sure I could keep my silence. "I was actually thinking of bringing you that herbal tea you love next week," Emily said, her tone bright and effortless. "You know, the one from that little shop downtown? It's just been so busy at work, but I'll make time." "Oh, Emily, that sounds wonderful," Beatrice exclaimed, her eyes practically glowing with pride. "You're always so thoughtful." Something in me snapped. Thoughtful? The word came out sharper than I intended, slicing through the room like a blade. Beatrice's brows furrowed in confusion as she and Emily turned to look at me. "She drops by once a week to take a few photos and then disappears," I said, my voice trembling. "I've been here every single day, doing everything I can to make sure you're comfortable." Emily's smile didn't falter. If anything, it widened, though her eyes glinted with something colder. "Clara," she said, her voice calm and measured, "I didn't realize this was a competition. We're all doing our part in our own way, some more than others," I muttered under my breath, turning back to the stove. The tension in the room thickened, pressing down on all of us. I didn't look up, but I could feel their eyes on me. The moment the words left my mouth, Regret began to creep in, even though I knew I was right. I hated that I'd let my frustration spill over. I didn't want to be the person who kept score, no matter how unfair things felt. Later that evening, I slipped into the guest room and closed the door softly behind me. I sank onto the edge of the bed, pulling my phone from my pocket. Ben answered on the second ring, his voice warm but distracted. "Hey, everything okay?" "No," I admitted, the word tumbling out before I could stop it. "I'm exhausted, Ben. I've been doing everything for your mom, everything, and she doesn't even notice." Emily waltzes in for 10 minutes with flowers and a fake smile, and suddenly, she's the perfect daughter. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line, static crackling softly through the speaker. "Clara," Ben said, his tone patient but firm, "you know how my mom is. She's always been like this. You can't take it personally." "I know she's like this," I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended, "but that doesn't make it easier. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be here, day in and day out, and still feel invisible?" I paused, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I just needed you to understand." Ben's voice softened, a hint of concern breaking through his usual practicality. "Clara, maybe it's time to take a break. You've done more than enough, everything. Really, why don't you come home for a week? Let Emily step up for once. I miss you, and you need to take care of yourself too." His words caught me off guard, loosening the knot in my chest just a little. The thought of going home, of sleeping in my own bed, of being with Ben, was so tempting it hurt. But then I thought of Beatrice, her frailty, her stubbornness, and guilt crept in. "I don't know," I said quietly. "What if she needs me?" "She'll manage," Ben said firmly. "You've been more than generous, Clara. It's okay to step back. You're not a bad person for putting yourself first once in a while." Ben and I lived 2 hours away in a small apartment we'd made our home over the last 5 years. When Beatrice's surgery was scheduled, I'd offered to move in temporarily to help with her recovery. Ben had wanted to be there too. He adored his mom, despite her quirks, but his job was at a critical point, and he couldn't take the time away. He called every day to check in, always asking how I was holding up, but I knew it weighed on him that he couldn't share the burden. I sighed, gripping the phone tighter. "I don't know, Ben. It's not that I don't want to come home, I do. I miss you, and I'm exhausted, but I can't just leave her like this. She still needs someone here." There was a brief pause before Ben spoke again, his voice steady but gentle. "I get it, Clara, you care about her, even if she doesn't always show it. Just think about it, okay? You've done so much already. It's not selfish to take care of yourself too." "I'll think about it," I said quietly, my throat tightening. "I promise." The words felt right even though I wasn't sure I could let myself walk away. The next morning, I found Beatrice in the living room, sitting upright in her chair with the television on low. She didn't look up as I entered, her attention fixed on a weather report. I hesitated in the doorway, debating whether to start with a simple, "Good morning." Before I could decide, Beatrice turned to me, her gaze sharp and pointed. "Clara," she began, her tone already laced with irritation. "I couldn't help but notice how late dinner was last night. It's terrible for my digestion to eat so late, you know." I blinked, caught off guard. "Dinner was ready as soon as Emily left," I replied carefully. "I thought we agreed." "Yes, but only because you didn't have it prepared earlier," she cut in, her words like knives. "When Emily is here, everything feels more put together. She doesn't need to be told what to do." I clenched my hands at my sides, biting back the retort that burned on my tongue. "Emily stayed for less than an hour," I said, my voice steady but strained. "She didn't even stay for dinner." "That's not the point," Beatrice snapped, leaning forward slightly. "Emily knows how to handle herself. She doesn't wait for me to tell her when or how to do things. She's considerate." I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my composure. "I've been here every day, Beatrice. I've been doing everything I can to make sure you're comfortable." "And yet," she shot back, her voice growing colder, "somehow it always feels like a struggle. You're here physically, Clara, but emotionally, you're checked out. You don't seem like you actually want to be here." Her words hit like a blow, my chest tightening. "That's not fair," I said, my voice trembling despite my efforts to stay calm. "I've put my life on hold to be here for you." Sacrificing?" she interrupted, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, how noble of you. If it's such a burden, Clara, maybe you should have just let Emily handle it. She's busy, yes, but at least she doesn't make me feel like an inconvenience." I opened my mouth, then closed it, unsure of how to respond. The hurt and anger bubbled inside me, but I knew saying more would only make it worse. Straightening, I said quietly, "I'm doing my best, Beatrice. I'm sorry if that's not enough. She waved a hand dismissively, turning back to the television. Your best isn't what I need, Clara. Emily understands me in ways you never will. The room felt suffocating, her words hanging in the air like smoke. Without another word, I turned and left, retreating to the guest room to collect myself. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall, not yet, not in front of her. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I stared at the neatly folded clothes in my suitcase, Beatrice's words replaying in my mind, each one digging deeper into the ache that had been building for weeks. No matter how much I gave, how much I tried, it was never enough, and it never would be. I picked up my phone, scrolling through my messages until I landed on the last one from Ben. You've done enough, Clara, please come home. The words felt heavier now, but they also carried a clarity I hadn't wanted to admit before. Ben was right, I had done enough. I'd given up my time, my energy, and my peace of mind, hoping to bridge a gap that could never be closed. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for someone who refused to see me or value what I was giving. I let out a shaky breath, wiping at the tears that threatened to spill. This wasn't about giving up, it was about knowing when I'd reached my limit. For my own sanity, I had to stop waiting for Beatrice's approval. I had to go home. That afternoon, I decided to speak to her one last time. The air between us was thick, heavy with everything that had been left unsaid. My heart pounded as I stepped forward, determined to make my voice heard. Beatrice, I began, my voice steady but soft. I need to talk to you. She glanced up briefly, her expression unreadable. If this is about dinner tonight, I'd rather you focus on getting it right than wasting time chatting. My jaw tightened, but I pushed forward. No, it's not about dinner, it's about how I've been treated since I got here. Her hand froze mid-stir, and she finally looked at me, one eyebrow arching. Oh? And how exactly have you been treated, Clara? I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could second-guess myself. I've been here every day, doing everything I can to take care of you. I've rearranged my life, missed important moments, and given you all of my energy, and yet, no matter what I do, it's never enough. You've made it clear, time and time again, that you don't value me, and honestly, I'm tired of being treated like I'm worthless. She set her spoon down with a deliberate clink, folding her hands in front of her. Well, she said coolly, if you're tired, Clara, no one's forcing you to stay. Frankly, Emily would do a much better job anyway. She always has. Her words stung sharper than I expected, but I refused to let her see how much they hurt. Emily isn't here, Beatrice, I said, my voice firmer now. She's never here for more than an hour or two. I've been the one taking care of you, but if you think she can do better, then fine, I'm done. Beatrice didn't flinch, her expression hard as stone. Good, she said with disdain. I won't miss the complaining. At least Emily knows how to show respect. I nodded slowly, the finality of her words settling over me like a cold weight. I hope she can give you what you need, I said quietly, because I won't be back. Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked away, my chest tight but my head held high. Back in the guest room, I packed my things with quiet determination. Each folded piece of clothing felt like another weight lifted from my shoulders. Beatrice's cutting words still echoed in my ears, but I shut them aside. It was over. I was done twisting myself into knots for someone who refused to see my worth. Once my bags were packed, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. My thumb hovered over Emily's name before I finally pressed call. The line rang several times before she answered. What is it, Clara? Emily's tone was clipped and impatient. I'm kind of busy right now. I took a steadying breath, refusing to let her attitude deter me. I'm leaving, I said, keeping my voice calm. I've packed my things, and I'm heading home. Beatrice needs someone here, so congratulations, you're up. What? She snapped, her voice instantly rising. Wait, what are you talking about? You can't just leave. I can, I replied firmly, and I am. I've done my part. Emily, it's your turn now. She let out a high-pitched laugh, more disbelief than amusement. Oh, sure, just drop everything on me. Do you have any idea how busy I am? I can't just. I've been here for weeks. I cut in, my tone steady. You've had plenty of time to prepare for this. Mom's your responsibility too, and she seems to think you're better at this anyway. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You've got to be kidding me. Emily shrieked, her voice climbing with panic. I don't have time to babysit her. That's your thing, Clara. You're the caretaker, not me. Not anymore, I said, my voice cold. Good luck, Emily. Before she could respond, I hung up, exhaling a shaky breath. I stood, grabbed my suitcase, and headed for the door. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. It was time to leave. 4 days passed, and I did my best not to think about what might be happening at Beatrice's house. But late one evening, my phone buzzed. Her name flashed on the screen. A part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity, and maybe a lingering sense of guilt, got the better of me. I picked up the call. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Clara." Beatrice's voice came through, shaky and strained. She sounded different, tired, maybe even desperate. I need to talk to you." I hesitated. "Is everything okay?" "No," she admitted, the word heavy with frustration and something else I couldn't quite place. "Emily hasn't been here since you left. She barely answers my calls, and when she does, she has some excuse about work or being too busy. She promised me she'd be here." I bit my lip, resisting the urge to say I told you so. Instead, I stayed quiet, letting her vent. "I've had to do everything on my own," Beatrice continued, her voice trembling. "I can't even manage the stairs some days. I don't know what to do. Clara, I feel completely abandoned." Her words hit harder than I expected, stirring a complicated mix of sympathy, vindication, and a lingering ache of resentment. After everything she had put me through, she was finally experiencing what it meant to feel truly alone. "I'm sorry to hear that, Beatrice," I said finally, keeping my tone neutral, "but I warned you this might happen. Emily's good at saying the right things, but she's never been the one to follow through." There was a long pause, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost broken. I didn't think she'd just leave me like this. I thought she cared." I stayed silent, not wanting to twist the knife. Beatrice was finally feeling the consequences of her favoritism. A part of me felt justified, but another part couldn't help but feel sorry for her. Taking a deep breath, I clutched the phone tightly. "I'm sorry you're feeling this way," I said, my voice quiet but steady. "I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but I can't come back. Not right now." "What do you mean, not right now?" she snapped, her tone immediately sharp. "I mean I can't drop everything again to move back in," I said firmly, though my heart ached as I spoke. "Beatrice, you treated me like I was nothing when I was there. I gave everything I had, and you made me feel like I didn't matter. I can't put myself through that again." Her response was instant and furious. "Oh, so now you're holding a grudge, are you?" she yelled, her voice rising. "You think you're so perfect, Clara. You think I didn't notice the mistakes you made while you were here? Don't act like you're some martyr. You've never been good enough for this family, and now you're proving it." Her words hit like a slap, but I kept my voice calm. "I'm not saying I'm perfect, Beatrice. I know I made mistakes, but I tried. I gave everything I had, and you never saw that. And now, after everything, you expect me to come back as if none of that happened?" She let out a bitter laugh, her tone dripping with anger. "Selfish, that's what you are. At least Emily would never abandon me like this." "Emily already has," I said quietly, the words hanging in the air. There was a stunned silence on the other end before she exploded again. "Don't you dare talk about Emily like that. She has her reasons, unlike you, who's just looking for an excuse to quit." Tears welled in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Beatrice, but I can't come back. Not like this." Before she could respond, I ended the call, my hands trembling. Her words sat heavy on my chest, but I knew I couldn't go back. Not now, and maybe not ever. 5 days later, I was beginning to find a fragile sense of peace. Long walks and conversations with Ben helped, but the memories of Beatrice's anger still lingered. Then, late one evening, my phone buzzed again. Her name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment, debating whether to answer. Finally, with a deep breath, I picked up. "Hello? Clara." Beatrice's voice broke on the other end, trembling and filled with raw emotion. "Clara, I'm so sorry." Her sobs were unrestrained, her words tumbling out in broken fragments. "I don't know what to say. I've been sitting here, thinking about everything, and I can't believe how awful I was to you. You didn't deserve any of it. I don't even know why I acted like that. You gave so much, and I threw it back in your face." I sat down, stunned. "Beatrice," I started, but she cut me off. "No, let me finish," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I've been so unfair to you, Clara, so blind. You didn't have to come here, but you did. You took care of me when no one else would, and I treated you so terribly." Her sobs deepened, and my chest tightened. "I regret it so much," she choked out. "Emily hasn't been here in days, and now I see it. I see what you were saying all along. I need you to know how sorry I am. I didn't deserve your kindness, but you gave it anyway." Tears pricked at my eyes, her sincerity cutting through the pain I'd been carrying. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Thank you, Beatrice," I said softly. "That means more than you know." "I don't expect you to forgive me," she whispered, "but I had to tell you. I'm so sorry." I sat in silence for a moment, letting her words sink in. "I'll need time," I said finally, my voice gentle but firm. "But I appreciate your apology. It's a start." "It is," she said, her sobs quieting. "I'll try to do better, Clara, I promise." When the call ended, I set the phone down, my heart heavy yet lighter all at once. For the first time, it felt like there was a path forward, however slow it might be.